Well, Chad Robichaux was a fighter. He fought for our country in Afghanistan. He trained hard to be an MMA fighter. So naturally, Chad was shocked when his wife sat him down and asked, "Why won't you fight for our marriage?"
Chad Robichaux was a member of an elite military Joint Special Ops Task Force. He served 8 tours in Afghanistan before being diagnosed with severe post-traumatic stress disorder. After he served, Chad trained to be a world champion MMA fighter and later opened a fight school with his wife, Kathy. The business was a huge success, but his life and marriage suffered as Chad struggled with the symptoms of his PTSD. In their book, Marriage Advance, Chad and Kathy share how their marriage was restored and how you can develop a stronger marriage too.
Chad and Kathy Robichaux are here with us now, and we thank them for being on our program today. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for
Thanks for having us.
Chad, let me start with you. You had 8 tours of duty to Afghanistan alone. Along the way in those 8 tours, were you aware that something was changing in you?
I'd say when, over time, I definitely felt the, my symptoms would started creeping up as far as anger and irritability, and that would later turn to extreme anxiety and eventually turn to me falling apart.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, did you realize how serious this could be?
No, I thought it was something I could handle at first. I let my pride and ego say this is something I could just push down and not talk to anyone about, and something I can handle. And then the anxiety turned to where I had physical symptoms, where I felt like my throat would swell shut, my arms and face would go numb, and I just would, my pride wouldn't let me talk to anyone about it, and eventually it all came crashing down.
Well, handling stuff is what you were taught to do. I mean, it's hard to acknowledge that to yourself, I'm sure. So, Kathy, here he comes home and he begins to experience these panic attacks, and what were you thinking?
Well, when he would come home between deployments, he was very distant and absent, and I didn't really see anything happening other than just a disconnection from us. So I just continued on, and when I did see him with the panic attacks after coming home from his last deployment, I was scared for him because this was the first time I had experienced my husband in a situation that he didn't feel he was in control of.
It was out of control, exactly. You stayed really busy when you got out of the military, and maybe that was part of running from the PTSD, was all the things that you were doing, including the MMA fighting. But what was going through your head at the time? I mean, were you aware, okay, I'm out of that war environment, and now I'm back in the good old US of A, but I'm feeling these things?
Yeah, I quickly tried to find something to compensate for this lifestyle of being a warrior, and I did martial arts my whole life, so the MMA thing was something that I gravitated to right away. It was something that felt masculine again. It filled my ego. Yeah. But I took something that actually could have been good for me, something productive in training, and I abused it. I would spend 10, 12 hours a day training and neglecting.
Yeah. And yet you say, because we're going to talk about your book, Marriage Advance, but you say that there was something in you that wanted somebody to say to you, stop.
Yeah, I mean, I was making reckless choices in my life. I was neglecting my family. I wasn't willing to get well. The anger was out of control, and the panic attacks were still there. And the way I was expressing those things were, making bad choices. But I wanted somebody to step in and say stop. But I really had put myself in a position to where everyone around me told me what I wanted to hear, and no one really told me what I needed to hear.
Yeah, it must have been so scary to feel that when you were in such war is never in control, but you know what I mean, where all your training was able to be exhibited and you could almost hide in that. And now here you are in day-to-day life. In the process of all of this, Kathy, I'm sure we're skimming over the multitude of feelings and things that you had, but you read Stormy Omartian's book, The Power of a Praying Wife.
I did, and this was after we were headed for a divorce. We had sold our home. We moved into 2 different homes, going through the whole separation process. I was so broken and I was so hurt and so lost. And all I could do was just get on my knees and pray. But I didn't know how to pray for somebody I was so hurt by. Okay. So I figured if I just follow the prayers for my husband, maybe I'll find healing. But the first prayer in there was praying for his wife. And so I just really got into it with the Lord and prayed for me.
What did God reveal to you about you?
Well, for me, it was finding forgiveness, and really is where I needed to start. And I found things in me that I needed to work on, which allowed me to see how to view my husband on the way that God viewed him, and to love him the way that the Lord loved him. And so it was starting with me first. I was able to move forward.
And then out of those convictions that were personal came the conviction of your marriage being such a high priority. Were you afraid to go back to him and say, why won't you fight for your family? I mean, I would have been scared, like, do I really want this, and will he really do it? And
at that point, I didn't really know that I was asking to, wanting that back, or that the Lord was going to put us back together. I was more angry, like, how could you do all these things for war, for your fighting, everything he did, he does at 110%. But when it comes to our family, you quit. How come you're going to quit on us and you're just going to move on? It's so much easier. I don't understand. Willing to lay your life down, but you can't do it for our family, and our children are hurting. And he listened to that last time I said that to him.
What did that do to you, Chad?
That question was probably, I'd say it's the center point of my life. I mean, that question, it really cornered me. It actually asked me, how could I do all these things that I was successful at? And when it came to the most important things in my life, my family, my health, I quit. And, being called a quitter is something that didn't resonate well with me. But she was right, and I had to make a choice. And so I chose to get back in the fight and follow her lead. I've learned how to fight from all these people, coaches in the military. But watching her fight for our family was probably the most inspiring thing that I've witnessed.
When a family breaks apart, when a marriage breaks down, it is so hard to learn to trust again. How did the two of you do that?
Oh, that was all God. Even being intimate, how does that happen? It was God. It's the same thing, go back to help me love him the way you love him. And getting on my knees every morning.
A lot of surrender.
Yes, and it wasn't between me and him, because he couldn't do any right for me. Everything that he was doing, it doesn't matter. It was wrong to me. So I learned to take it to the Lord every single morning. I was doing that, at least for the first year and a half, every morning. And then it started going every other day and farther apart. And I still do that, because the enemy will come in and try to remember. And it's surrendering.
Why is it worth it? Why is it worth it?
Well, I'd say for us, there's so much that we have gained out of restoring our marriage, because now our story has been able to save so many other marriages. So now, looking at it from where we are now, that's why it's been worth it. I didn't see it back then, but I do now.
Just being the marriage and the couple and the people that God created us to be, living outside of that never allowed us to reach our potential or our purpose in this world. And so I think by fighting for our marriage and coming in line with who God created us to be, we're able to fulfill that purpose that God had for us.
Chad, I see that all the things that you trained in and did so well, that in your mind and in the thoughts of others defined being a man, were just the surface. You figured out who you are as a man of God, and that changes everything, doesn't it?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. You've got an amazing program for couples that I know you've established. Listen, if you're struggling in your marriage, or you know somebody who is, you need to get this book. The Robichaux's book is called Marriage Advance, Love Never Gives Up. It's powerful. This is a 26-week workbook that couples can use to build a stronger marriage, and you need to get a hold of it. It's really awesome. Chad and Kathy, thank you for being with us and for your vulnerability and your passion for what you do.
Thanks so much.
For what God does through you. It's pretty exciting. Yeah.